We're Sarah and Ashley Armstrong, the Strong Sistas.
And we are regenerative ranchers. How else would you describe us? We love food.
Best friends. We love to cook, and we're on a mission to bring more animal products and organ meats into people's kitchens. So in today's video, we're gonna be making 3 different dishes. So basically a full day of eating, a breakfast, a supper, and a dessert.
So we are in Austin, Texas, collaborating with the Heart and Soil team to bring you guys these delicious, nutrient-packed recipes. So let's get started with breakfast.
Sounds good.
So we are going to be making an egg quiche, and we are going to add some more nutrients into it by adding in some sweetbread.
What is sweetbread?
So sweetbread is a culinary term that refers to either the pancreas or the thymus gland. So here we have sweetbread, which is and this one is a thymus gland. So sweetbread is super high in vitamin C, selenium, and B vitamins. So it's a great nutrient-packed organ to add to your diet. However, if you don't have access to sweetbread, you can substitute this for ham, liver, beef heart, bacon.
Anything that goes good with eggs.
Yeah. All right, so what else will we need for this recipe?
All right, we need 16 whole eggs. We need 1 cup of raw milk, 1 teaspoon of salt. We need fresh Parmesan and raw mozzarella cheese.
And then the crust is going to be made from butternut squash. So squash is technically a fruit, and so definitely animal-based. So we're gonna start with assembling the sweetbread. So the sweetbread has to be cooked first. So we are going to boil some water on the stove. So let's get this boiling. All right, so while the water is boiling on the stove, let's prep the squash. So we're gonna peel the skin using a peeler. Safety first, make sure you consider where the knife is. So now that the skin is removed, I'm gonna take a knife and chop it up.
Okay, so these half circle pieces of squash are actually going to form the base of our crust. And so we're just gonna take them and line the sides of the pie dish. Like this.
Let me get you some more half
Yes,
moons.
please, more. And so now that we have the entire outside line, we're gonna start forming just the bottom layer. And basically, it's gonna be like a puzzle. There's no right or wrong way to do this.
No.
You're just gonna wanna put the squash in so the entire base is covered.
And the reason that we're adding the squash to this dish is it adds a little bit of sweetness, adds a little more taste, and it provides a great texture as well.
I love the texture change.
Along the quiche.
All right, so now that we've got our crust made, we cut up the squash pieces, put it all in our pie dish. We're gonna go ahead and throw the sweetbread into the boiling water so we can get that cooking. Oh, she's using her hands.
Yep. Perfect. Okay, so we're gonna let that boil for about 10 minutes, and while that's boiling, we can prep the quiche ingredients.
Yeah, so what you're gonna need to do next is grab a big bowl, and we're gonna start cracking our eggs. So like I said before, we're gonna need 16 whole eggs, and we're actually gonna be doing 8 whole eggs in the quiche, and then just 8 whites. But I want you to save those egg yolks in a side bowl because they're a key ingredient in our ice cream.
Let's play some egg boxing.
Oh.
Okay, ready? Whose egg is going
You
to
want a
crack?
box?
Mine.
Which one do you think? Who's
All right,
cracking?
ready? 3, 2, 1. Yep.
So now that we've got our, again, I'll go over that. We've got 8 egg yolks on the side. We're gonna set that aside for our ice cream
them for the
recipe.
ice cream.
And then we've got 8 whole eggs in here plus 8 egg whites. So next we are going to add the full cup of milk. This is raw A2 milk, our favorite.
Yum. Nutrients right there.
Yep, and then we're going to be doing just 1 teaspoon of salt.
We got some sea salt flakes
If you're
here.
really into salty dishes, you can go ahead and toss a little bit more in there. It's not a perfect science. And then, whoop, we're gonna be taking our raw mozzarella cheese and grating about probably 2 tablespoons worth into the quiche itself.
Ooh, show them the grating.
Oh, this is beautiful.
Other way, keep it turning. There you go. Grate it, grate it.
So once you finish with this though, you're gonna wanna set the cheese aside because there will be more cheese
On top.
so don't
Can you
put it away
ever do
quite
too
yet.
much cheese?
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
This is the money right here. So now that we've got the eggs, egg whites, milk, and cheese, and salt in our bowl, we're gonna whisk that all together.
Whisk it real good. You could go faster.
Yeah, get it up.
Whisk better. There you go. Yum.
So our next step is going to be to add the sweetbread. And then this is the filling for the quiche that's gonna go on our beautiful squash crust right here.
So after about 10 to 15 minutes of cooking the sweetbread in a light boil, let's let it on the cooking board, let it cool off a little bit.
Done.
Yeah.
So what we're looking for here is like, it's similar to, I would say, liver in consistency once it's cooked. It's like spongier. So it might not be for you. And if it's not, that's perfectly okay. A few alternatives here. You could just do, like we said, ham, bacon. You could even do liver or ground beef for some meat and additional protein in the quiche.
So let's let this cool off just slightly, and then we're gonna chop it into little bits. It is a small amount that's added to the quiche, so it's kind of disguised in there. And so this is what thymus will look like, but if you have pancreas, it will look slightly different. So, okay, let's add it in. I missed. Okay.
So I'm gonna give that a quick mix, and then this is going to be poured into our butternut squash crust.
Pour it in.
That's great right there. Quiche is ready to be baked. So now that we've got our oven at 400, we're gonna throw it in the oven. Can you open that for me?
Yep.
Thanks, girl. And here we go. For the most part, it's probably gonna be about 45 minutes in the oven at 400 degrees. Okay, so it's been about 50 minutes. That's about how long it took for our quiche to fully cook through. So you're definitely gonna wanna keep checking on your quiche throughout the cooking process. But this right here looks perfect.
Look at that.
So we have some of the cheese nicely browned on top. And if we were to stick a knife in, it's gonna come out clean. So that's perfect. There we go.
That's good. Boom. Okay.
Perfect. All right, so we're moving on to our second recipe of the day, which is oxtail cottage pie.
For our supper. So oxtail is one of my favorite parts of the animal. So yes, this is the tail of the cow. And so you can see that there is a bone along all of it, and it contains so much connective tissue. So let's get started with the braise, since it takes about 3 hours to really break down all of the connective tissue with the oxtail. So first we're going to get the pot hot. So we're gonna put our enameled cast iron pot on the stove, take the lid off, and turn it to high heat. We wanna get that hot. And we are going to sprinkle Salt Bae all the oxtail. You wanna help me Salt Bae? Okay, ready? So get the salt. The first step in braising is to give the meat a nice sear on all sides, so it's a nice browning. And then we're gonna turn the heat down and cook it low and slow to give all that connective tissue time to break down into the gelatin. So in order to brown the meat, we wanna add some fat. My favorite fats to add for browning meat are going to be tallow or ghee, since these have higher smoke points than butter itself. So some of the best animal fats, we're gonna use tallow here. We're gonna add that to the hot pot. So no really specified amount. We just wanna make sure that the entire base is covered. So that should be good. So now that the pot is hot, we're gonna add the oxtail and we're gonna brown them, get a nice little sear on all the sides. So
we're gonna let it sit like this
for about 2 to 3 minutes for all sides. And we wanna just make sure we get that nice brown sear on all the sides. So the braising technique is a moist liquid cooking method. And so the meat is going to be cooking inside of hot liquid. So you could technically just use filtered water, but we are going to add some more flavor and nutrients to this dish by using bone broth and apple juice. So this bone broth was made by Kelly, part of the Heart and Soil tribe. Look at how wiggly jiggly this is.
Okay, so now that the pot has cooled a little bit, we're gonna add our braising liquids in, which is 4.5 cups of broth.
Look at that wiggle jiggle.
Oh, it's so thick.
I'll get it.
All right, she's gonna get a spoon to get the rest of that. And then a cup of organic apple juice. And so this is just gonna add a nice little flavor to the dish. And if you wanted to add even more flavor, in the cookbook we do say in this recipe to add rosemary, fresh sprigs, or you could add just a dash of fresh clove, or really any other, fresh herbs to this dish. It would do great. There we go. But for simplicity, we're not gonna add anything today.
Okay, so now that we have the liquid in, we are going to turn the heat on again, and we want to bring it to a light boil. So we're going to turn it to high until it has a light boil. So the important thing with braising is that the meat is at least 75 to 80% submerged in the liquid.
Okay, so while the oxtail is braising, we're actually gonna make this delicious acorn squash topping for the pie. So what you're gonna do is take a small acorn squash and we're gonna chop it in half. It's probably, there we go. Okay, so with the preheated oven to about 400 degrees, we're gonna take our squash halves, set them down flesh side onto our baking sheet, and then pop these in the oven, and they're going to bake for about 40-45 minutes. You wanna just check on them and make sure that it's very fork tender. You can scoop out the flesh very easily, soft and delicious, and that's gonna be the base of our topping for our oxtail cottage pie.
So it's been about 40 minutes and we're gonna check on the acorn squash. We just wanna make sure that it has softened up so that we can scoop it out. So before we add in the bone marrow, we are just going to scoop some of the squash out into a bowl and just let it slightly cool.
Oh yeah, that's definitely
She's gonna burn her hands holding the acorn squash that way. So it's been about 3 hours for the oxtail in the Dutch oven, and now we are going to add apples to the stew. So the apples are going to give us a little bit of flavor, and they're also gonna add more texture to the dish. But we wait to add the apples to the dish since apples are going to soften up a lot quicker than the oxtail itself. And we're gonna keep it in cubes. And we've got about 3 apples to add to this dish. So the oxtail has been braising for about 3 hours, and now we are going to add chunks of apple. So the apple is gonna add some sweetness and some more taste to the dish and a different texture profile. So we peeled the skin off and chopped the apple into little cubes. I like to peel the skin off. I personally digest stone fruits better without the skin, but if you'd prefer to keep the skin on, totally fine. All right, so let's add the apple to the oxtail, and we will put the pot lid back on and let this braise for about 30 minutes. While the apples are softening up, let's make the pie topping. So what's the pie topping?
We're gonna return to the acorn squash that we were just sitting and letting cool, and we're going to spoon out and mix in 2 tablespoons of bone marrow, 2 tablespoons of milk, and then about 1/4 to 1/2 teaspoon of salt.
So the apples have been stewing in the pot for about 20-25 minutes. So let's gather the pot. And now we are going to pull the oxtail out. Oh, so good. Smells so good. So we're gonna pull the oxtail pieces out and let it sit on a cutting board. And then while I'm doing this, Sarah's gonna fish for apples.
Yeah, so basically we need to remove the meat from the broth so we can shred the meat off the bone, and then take the apples out so we can reduce the liquid down.
So yeah, this is a cooking technique called reducing. So as soon as we get everything out of here, we're gonna return the pot to the stove, get it to a boil, and let the liquid reduce down. So we're gonna bring it back to the stove and just turn it to high. Take that off. Turn it to high heat and just bring that to a bubbly boil to let that reduce down. So now that the oxtail has slightly cooled down to the touch, we can then shred it with a fork. So this should be super fork tender because all that collagen has now broken down into gelatin. Let's see. Oh yeah, wow, look at that. Look at that. This is a delicacy. Look at that. So we've now taken the meat off the oxtail. As a note, oxtail is super mild tasting. It's kind of just like shredded pot roast, really delicious, but with even more collagen and gelatin. Put it all in.
Perfect.
Okay. Stir that up. So the last step is going to be mixing all these ingredients together and putting that squash marrow filling on top. And while you are doing this, make sure you preheat the oven to 450 degrees Fahrenheit. So that way we can get a nice crisp broil on top. Into the pie dish.
And now it's time to put the topping on. So returning to the squash mixture we had, we're just gonna scoop that on.
Okay, and the final step is to just place this in the oven with it at 450 degrees. Just be careful you don't put it too high to the top of the oven so you don't burn it. But we wanna just crisp it up, warm everything.
Yeah, we do want a slight roast on the top.
Get a light browning roast on the top. So we're gonna add this to the oven. Okay, so the oxtail has been in the oven for about 15 minutes. Nice browned top. Look at that, how pretty that is. There you go. So, next up, just serve it.
Serve it up.
All right, so we're gonna scoop.
Yeah, give me
A little bit.
slice on that plate.
Look at that. All right, let's dive in. So this is actually a quite balanced meal. You've got carbs, a little bit of fat, and some protein.
Okay.
So many different textures and tastes.
A little salt on for me, but very good.
Delicious.
Now we are on to dessert, my favorite thing ever. And what I love about dessert is that you can actually make it super healthy by using good ingredients. So,
Real ingredients.
Real ingredients. So here we're gonna make some peaches and cream raw ice cream.
Guys, this is so good. It's my favorite recipes that she makes me.
She requests it a lot. So what you're gonna need for this recipe is about 3 peaches.
Now, if peaches are out of season, like they are today, we are using frozen peaches. So commonly, fruit is picked in season and then frozen to be used in other times of the year. So totally fine to use frozen peaches for this recipe because we're cooking the peaches down anyways.
Yep. All right, we're also gonna need 2 cups of raw milk, 1.5 cups of raw cream, some salt, pure vanilla extract, a little bit of lemon juice, and then pure raw honey.
And last but not least, raw yolks, delivering so many nutrients to this ice cream.
So remember, we got those from our quiche recipe, so make sure you save those yolks. Okay, so the first step is we're going to cook down our peaches, and since ours are frozen, this might take a little bit longer, but basically you're gonna put them into a big pot. Need that last little one.
little bit.
And then you're gonna transfer it to the stove, and we're just gonna cook it on about medium heat for a little bit until the juices start releasing, because we really want to gather and capture that peach flavor in the ice cream, and that requires to get a little bit of that juice out.
So while the frozen peaches are starting to cook down, let's prepare the honey and the lemon that goes into the peaches.
Great.
So it's about 2 tablespoons of honey.
Yeah, so we need more than that for this recipe, but we're gonna split it up. So we're gonna just take 2 tablespoons first.
This is some nice raw honey. Preserve a lot of those nutrients.
Oh my gosh,
So
it looks so good.
look at that. It's about 1
Do that again.
and about 2. Can you ever add enough honey? Can you overdo it?
Too much
Can
honey.
you ever overdo it?
I don't know.
Look at that drizzle.
Perfect.
Wow.
Okay, we're good. We're good. No more.
Okay.
All right, and then about 1/2 teaspoon of lemon juice. So I'm just gonna eyeball that and get that into there.
To mix it up.
that So that's just gonna add a little bit more flavor to our peach mix-in, which goes into the delicious vanilla cream base.
All right, bring those peaches back over here.
Beautiful.
So they're softened,
Yeah.
slightly caramelized, really
me
gets
this.
that peach flavor.
You
All right, let's scoop them in.
good stuff.
Got it. Teamwork makes the dream work.
So next we're gonna transfer that honey and lemon mix that we made right into the peaches. And then we're gonna give this a quick stir and then place it into the freezer so it can cool. So when we add it back into our base,
We don't want it melting the ice cream, you know?
Okay, so while the peaches are cooling, we're gonna go ahead and make the ice cream base. So we're gonna add in 2 cups of raw milk. Oh, so good. 1.5 cups of raw cream.
Peaches and cream ice cream.
That's right. And 2 raw egg yolks.
So many.
Oh my gosh, look at this.
They're a little bit stuck to the bowl.
Look at this. This is
Get 'em
great.
Oh, plop. Plop.
Perfect. And then we're gonna do 1/2 teaspoon of salt.
Salt.
I love to add a little bit of the sweet and salty flavor to my
salty.
desserts. You can omit that if you're not into it, but
I am.
I highly suggest it. And then this is actually homemade pure vanilla extract by the Heart and Soil team member Kelly. So again, thank you so much. We're just gonna do 1/4 teaspoon
Vanilla extract.
of this right in there. And then our final ingredient for the base is gonna be about 1/4 cup of raw honey. So we're just gonna eyeball this again.
That's a lot of honey.
No, that's about it.
That's great. Okay.
Again, like you said in the beginning, can you ever do too much honey?
Can I start to whisk it?
Yeah, and so we're gonna whisk all of that together.
So make sure you get a nice big old bowl.
Now that we've got this all whisked together, we're actually going to set this into the fridge to just let it keep cooling while we get the ice cream maker ready. Okay, so now that our peaches have cooled down, we're going to chop them up. So if you soften them down enough, you could very well just kind of, you know, slice the peaches in half with a spoon. We just want to make the bits into a little bit smaller chunks of peaches, so the overall ice cream base is a little bit more well-rounded. So we're going to transfer this into our base.
Oh my gosh, delicious. I think peaches are my favorite fruit.
Yeah,
Yeah. And scoop it in.
that's good. And then give that a quick stir.
Stir it up.
So the next step is going to be different for everybody because it really depends on what type of ice cream maker you have, if you even have an ice cream maker. So we are fortunate to have this beautiful ice cream maker that already cools the ice cream as it mixes. So we didn't need to pre-freeze our bowl. But if you have a standard ice cream maker, definitely make sure you pop that into the freezer beforehand, the night before. And then also you could make this with no ice cream maker just by mixing the ingredients together and then freezing this in a glass Tupperware.
Just put your glass Tupperware in the freezer and then overnight, then the next morning, check on your ice cream and it should be nice. And
You definitely want to mix it a few times in between though.
So let's go
So-
put it in the ice cream maker.
Yep. So for most people, you're going to want to make sure your ice cream bowl is already turning. But for us, again, this machine's a little bit, it's awesome. We're just going to ladle in our base to the machine. Coming down to the end here, so I actually am going to go ahead and just pour the rest since it's a little bit easier.
So many nutrients right there.
Okay, so the ice cream's been churning for about an hour. So we're gonna check on it. It's definitely thickened up some. So, it's like a little ice cream
This
purse.
is
Oh, it's beautiful.
3C thick.
Okay, so pro tip, pre-freeze the bowls you're gonna put your ice cream into, so then it helps the ice cream stay cool. And so this is definitely like a soft serve consistency. And so I would recommend letting it sit in the freezer for a few hours before you serve it. But this is gonna work just fine for right now.
Very good. So good.
Probably my favorite recipe.
Why do you need store-bought ice cream?
All right, guys, it's been a full day of cooking. We made a breakfast dish, supper, and dessert. I'm excited to eat all the leftovers.
All of them are super delicious while being jam-packed with nutrients. So we hope you guys enjoy. We also filmed a ton of other recipes as Instagram reels. So make sure you check out the Heart and Soil Supplements Instagram and our Instagram at strong.sistas for more delicious and nutritious recipes.